everybody's favorite thing in the world ever. No one's ever hated this. It's always loved by everyone and everything. AI, artificial intelligence. Chat, BLT? That's wrong. Or whatever it's called. AI. It's radically changed the way we use technology, for better or for worse. There's no putting the lightning back in the bottle. This video is kind of for me to talk about how I operate in and around it as a cinematographer. An overarching thought or sentiment that I have with AI is that I highly doubt it'll replace human storytelling. I think there's always going to be an innate desire for stories that come from actual people versus something that is made synthetically or by a machine. I think it's difficult to connect with something that isn't made by a human. That's like saying a human being can date a soda machine, you know? Like, you see how absurd that is? Like, I feel like this mentality in mind and it being... and also just seeing the reception that it's gotten, and with a certain sentiment online being... calling this sort of thing like AI slop makes me feel much more confident about the filmmaking genre as a whole, and kind of the public perception of AI. I will say before I really rip into AI, I wanna give some credit to a director / multi-hyphenate creative, Atlas Akopian. He was previously a studio mate and is now just a friend of mine. Who I've seen him post like some really interesting AI kind of images. I'll put one here. And it's again, I don't think it'll make a full replacement, but I think images like that are really odd. And it's kind of fine that it's in the uncanny valley because you're not expecting this to happen. You know what I mean? And so videos like this, I think, are an interesting positive spin on AI, but again, ultimately, given the perception of it, I think filmmaking is fine. That being said, I've seen it in other use cases besides this. A director friend of mine, Byron Mason, which you may know from the ALG show, he's sent me a couple decks for projects that heavily involve AI visuals. Pretty much the whole treatment was using, I think he said, visuals from Midjourney, which I thought was interesting. Again, it kind of, because you can kind of make out that it's AI, it kind of sits in this uncanny valley for me. But the point wasn't to, produce this visual, in this case a music video, through something like Midjourney. It was solely used as a creative tool to sort of prove ideas and kind of what sort of visual language he was trying to convey. Again, there was still a lot of conversation that needed to happen, and a lot of back and forth with traditional references from actual music videos that still needed to happen. But it gave me like a really interesting baseline for kind of what he was looking for, and there was a lot of really early questions that I didn't have to ask because of that predetermined visual with Midjourney. Um, but again, he still foundationally wanted to make the visual himself with a cinematographer and a crew, and um, that sentiment of just using it as like a showcase for ideas, I think is um, sort of the best um, use that I've seen for it, at least just sort of in my experience. And I've started to receive kind of more decks and more pre-production stuff with this sort of tool in mind. Speaking of using it more as a tool, I watched a video from Luke Forsyth. He's a documentary DP that also has a YouTube channel. I'm sure you can find him. And I saw him use it in a way that I wasn't really expecting it. And tried the what is it, the GPT or the model that he made. I don't know the word is, but um, I tried to set that up, and I wanted to see what kind of insight I could gain from um, my career and where I should head, just outside of a person, because I wanted to give it the benefit of the doubt. I wanted to see like, okay, XYZ is using it. These creative people are using it. These non-creative people are using it. What even is this? And I think also my fear is like, I don't want to be behind on something. I kind of want to get ahead of it and kind of use it to my advantage in sort of the best way possible. Um, so going into this, I sort of took any advice from the AI as like, with a huge bag of salt. The way I viewed it was as a thing to bounce ideas off of. Um, I had asked it a variety of questions for marketing myself, um, and kind of how to move forward. Again, I didn't find some of the advice helpful. I'd even venture to say that a good chunk of it was useless. But also, some of the advice I feel like really nailed it, or was something that I hadn't really considered myself. It's not a person with its own bias towards me or anything, or another DP who has kind of their own biases, which is great knowing that it could help me um, give very honest advice and perspective on what I was asking. An example of like helpful advice, marketing aside, was a question I had asked about generating more client leads, because I'm looking to kind of head in a more narrative direction with my career, and I kind of wanted to see, hey, what could be the thing that kind of takes me there. And it gives me some perspectives on my specific situation that I feel like I needed to hear, and I feel like any filmmaker um, wouldn't have told me these sorts of things out of like hurt feelings or something like that. And although admittingly it did suck to hear, um, I feel like it was equally helpful in certain aspects. And I'm not going to repeat the advice just because, again, it's my specific situation. But I definitely recommend checking out this guy, Luke Forsyth. I'm probably butchering that, but he's a documentary DP. He made kind of a whole more extensive video kind of talking about this sort of thing. Definitely a much better video to go to. But if you're curious about that GPT model that I used, I think that's definitely something to check out. So after doing my own research and kind of divulging into like, okay, what is this? Is this beneficial? Is this not beneficial? Do I feel like AI is going to replace filmmaking? No fucking chance. Human-made things will always supersede in this regard. But if we don't leverage it for our own gain, this AI thing, I find it hard for us to continue as an industry. I think that's just ultimately the way of the future, whether we like it or not. And we either fall behind and not use it, or we use it to our own benefit. And leverage it in our careers moving forward. Um, and I think maybe my mind has changed in that regard. But I don't know. A lot more research. Again, you're with me on this journey. I'm equally experimenting as much as you are. Hopefully, this was helpful to somebody. If it wasn't, I don't blame you. AI's weird. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.